Bohemian Grove, so many have heard about it now, thousands across the nation. It all began for me back in 1993-94, I don't remember which, but one of the satanic, ritually abused individuals that I sat down with and talked to, that came from Fort Bragg, had worked in, military government, and I don't want to go into all that background, but just simply to tell you this, that in our hundreds of hours of conversation over years, one day this individual began to talk to me about a place called Bohemian Grove. They began to describe this tremendous retreat center where leaders from all over the world come, and where they have this great big owl, and there's Moloch worship of an ancient deity, demon deity. They began to describe to me all the different places, basements and underground places and cabins, and so many of the abusive things that were occurring there. It was amazing to me to listen to them, and so one day as we were discussing things, they asked me if I had paper, and I had this 17 by 11 size paper at my office, and I pulled it out and laid it before them. And they began to literally draw out the entire landscape. I mean, with where like a lake was, and cabins, and the names of places. I still have all the pages. And they drew this great big owl, and a lake, and people sitting on the other side, and people in hoods, and what looked like a human being that was going to be thrown into some ritual pot. And I looked over all this, and they began to explain to me back then that this was a place that a lot of the monarchs and others from MKUltra and secret projects and Luciferians would meet up and bring in, the core of sex slaves and so many of these trained Babylon working babies, as they called them, individuals. Listen. This is the place where they were going to do what they could to corrupt world leaders, to do what they could to influence world leaders, to blackmail world leaders. I want you to hear what I experienced back there in the early 90s, listening to not just one, but others who had sub-personalities, and then dealing with them and breaking the demonic presence and finding out that inside were personalities that could describe in detail Bohemian Grove. And they could tell what went on there. They can tell about cabins. They can describe at some places where rituals were done. Some places were just sex with little boys and little girls. Can you imagine? Why in the world are we even dealing with or having this page out there called The Assault on Bohemian Grove? Some of you have read all about it. And I'm very, very sure by the providence of God, there'll be some of you who have been victims, and you'll know full well. Some of you keep it in secret still. Some of the sub-personalities that have been created, they know all about it. Some of you who've been out and you want the world to know, and you've read about things, maybe God's going to call you to come out and begin to tell more and more and more. Because now, listen, the sins of this place, the ungodly things going on in this place are piled up before God. Going all the way back to Germany, probably over 200 years, long, long time, these Luciferians have set this up. There's a front to it, a mask that looks like a neat place for men, a men's club, all this other junk. But behind it are Luciferians. Behind it are real Luciferian worshipers. And their devotion to the deity Moloch, and they're appeasing that ancient deity. Now, when I sat there listening to this individual that I've come to trust over years and years of spending time with them, and hundreds of hours discussing so many things, and so many things. Matter of fact, one day this individual, after sharing all they could about it, brought to me a necklace that had a little silver owl that she gave me and said was hers. She was used there as a sexual object. She was used there in ritual stuff. They use some of them to conjure powers. They use others to be sex slaves, or to be those who will compromise world leaders and important people that have great influence, that could be bribed later on. Who knows all the of the decadent, immoral, ungodly. Listen, if you're looking at the web page, or you've seen some of the many, many pictures now that are on the web of that, 40-foot owl, whatever it is, the statue that represents an ancient deity, and the effigy of a human being that's thrown in. Somebody brought to me, I believe, somewhere around 2000, 2001, the incredible video of a brave man, Alex Jones, that went inside and got pictures, and will even show like the effigy of a human being. Well, let me tell you something. I don't believe it's an effigy. I believe that all those world leaders, including our presidents, governors and senators, representatives, they're all brought there for a purpose. Who is ever behind all of it, these ancient Luciferians, these are the people that are connected to the goal of bringing in a new world order. These are the people that are connected to the coming rise of the Antichrist. These are the people who know what it is to conjure demonic presence, to send out dark powers. When you see on video representatives of the United States of America and world leaders sitting there in the wooded area, and across the lake, these people that are in robes laying out an entire ritual. And listen, even if it was just an effigy of a human being thrown into that fire, and they call it the cremation of care, that they're casting all their cares away, listen, they must think everybody is stupid, that they won't know what's really going on there. They won't understand the spiritual temperature. What's really happening is those leaders have been gathered all there in that area for one reason, so that they can be collected together, so that powers can be raised, and literally demonic presence sent on our world leaders to influence them and to open them to the darkness, to open them to the Luciferian side, to weaken their disposition, to move them later on through their camping experience into sexual encounters and ritual encounters and other things that go on. I mean, we've only got to see from the one film from Alex Jones, the little glimpses. Listen, the Bohemian Grove has been there for over 100 and some years in the United States, in San Francisco. They've been doing all these things for so many years. And it's not just one ritual a year. This is the place where tons of things go on all year long. And then this great big one that's been kind of exposed. You've got to realize that those 2,000 and some, whatever the entire footage is for sure of the grounds there, that are there clearly like the Old Testament, where the land becomes demonized, the air becomes demonized, the rituals are really real, and they're done. So listen, in all of this that you're looking at, I'm encouraging you, especially if you're new to this information on the Bohemian Grove, that you've got to understand a couple of things. One, there's a number of other places like this around the United States and all throughout Europe, that ritual centers all over the world are there operating, conjuring the powers, appeasing Satan, and preparing, helping to release the powers in preparation for the coming reign of Antichrist. You got to understand how the dark side works. You really got to understand occult level spiritual warfare. And sometimes we're going to go back to the Old Testament, like to 2 Kings, chapters 21, 22, 23. When you read about Manasseh, how one individual, opened up what should have been all of God's land and property in place, even his temple. And he brought in all the worship of the starry host and every kind of god and goddess, including Moloch worship. He even sacrificed his own son to the demon god. And all this spiritual corruption was so bad and so hideous that even the temple of God, they took symbols, satanic symbols or symbols of the deities, and put them up on the temple, and they had the occult priestesses